This panel is called Profit Meets Purpose, Pioneering Vegan Ventures. Now, have any of you driven abroad in a different country? Yeah. So then people say, you know, if you've learned to drive in India, you can drive anywhere, right? Then maybe that's true to, if you've started a business in India, you can start a business anywhere. But what about a vegan business? Is that a double negative? It could be. So things are challenging anyway. So I'm going to try and get into the ins and outs of running a business. What worked? What are their learnings? What they could do better? We have 6 incredible panelists over here. Each has a unique story to tell. And we're going to try and dive into it really soon. So first, I would like to introduce Sunny Gurnani, the co-founder and CEO of Crave by Leena. Sukriti, Khaitan, the co-founder of Asa Beauty. Abhay, Rangan, the founder of One Good. Nikhil, Gupta, the founder of Pizza Bakery and the co-founder of Panini. Yeah. Soorya, Jagdish, the co-founder and COO of Cosmix. And Sowmya, Parameswaran, the founder of Hibiscus Heroes. So we're going to start with Sunny today. Do you have a mic? Okay. So Sunny, could you give us a short introduction into how Crave started as a home bakery, because it's quite a household name now. You've had a unique strategy. You can see from the stall over here that everybody loves sugar and everybody needs to celebrate their birthday with a cake. We see your ads all the time everywhere, and we love to order your cake. So do tell us a little bit about how you grew from a home business to where you are today.
Sure. We sure chase people down using our ads. We do a lot of performance marketing.
Louder, please. How are we doing on sound? Yeah.
Sure. So Crave really started. It's a very simple story, right? It started off by Leena, our founder. She wanted to feed some good desserts to our kids. So me and Leena moved to Bangalore in 2014. So we had our first child, Kian, in 2015, and we raised him vegan. So at the time, so there were hardly any vegan options, right? Let alone desserts. Forget about desserts, but vegan butter, vegan cookies, while our kids are growing up. So there were hardly any options. And then I remember we had, of course, carrots and paradigm shift going, but they were focused on food. There was hardly any desserts available while our kids were growing up. And then it was just so natural that, and Leena being pastry chef from Australia, she had done her courses and she'd worked in with a lot of pastry chefs there. And so she started trying experimenting just so that we can do recipes, non-vegan recipes into vegan. So all the desserts, cookies, vegan butter was made only for home consumption, family, friends. So it was such an organic growth that this is around 2016-17, I think. So it was an organic growth where it was for 1-2 years she was doing only home baking. That was only for home, right? For family and friends, not even for anybody around. So then we obviously identified gap in the market in Bangalore. We saw that there was hardly any decent dessert options available. And then she started while she was doing it for family. We kind of started doing for vegan community, right? You all guys, and then we got great response. Thanks to you all. And there it was like a time where at one point. This was, I think, 2018-19. She was making our bake. Our oven at home was on fire at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? It was every day. It was amazing. The 2 o'clock in the morning she was baking and stuff, and it was time to step out of home bakery, take up a commercial space. So thankfully, we knew a space around the area in Korvangla. It was a house. We had taken up a space nearby and moved in 2019. I think we moved from the home baking into the commercial kitchen. That was a turning point where I still remember Leena asking me to help with hiring the first employee at Crave, and then there was a baker, I think from West Bengal in Calcutta. I spoke to him, and then they said that he was saying, I can't even remember his name, but he said that we come in groups. I did not understand what that means. I said, okay, what does it mean? He said, can I bring my friend along with me? I said, okay, go ahead. So there were two bakers who came along. Then Leena started stressing out, saying that they reached Bangalore. And then Leena started stressing out, saying, how are we going to manage two employees, right? So then from there on, today she stresses on, we have 42 employees at Crave. She still stresses saying that we have short staff, always short staff, and we probably hire 2 team members every month. So it's been an amazing journey. So we moved to commercial kitchen in 2019, and then COVID helped us a lot. Probably that's a story, longer story, but COVID helped us from being a house restaurant. We had a commercial bakery in the house around 2019-20. We had taken up the space. In 6 months, COVID hit us, and all the businesses were slowing, taking it easy, slowing down, and that's the point where we said, okay, what do we do now? It's just been 6-8 months. We've taken up the space. We don't want to step back and chill at home, right? So we instead we started hiring delivery people. We started increasing our staff in the kitchen and stuff, right? And thankfully, we being delivery first, it worked out okay for us, and that was our strategy. Anyway, we wanted to be delivery first. We used to take online orders, I think, on WhatsApp and Facebook before that, and then we kind of started hiring more people in every department around 2020 after the COVID. It worked out to a point where, and then in the first COVID wave, I got hit by COVID, right? So I was locked up in one room for 10 days, and that never happened. And there was no point in my life that I've not done anything or being locked up in a room for 10 days, right? So then I had nothing to do. I said, okay, let me do something productive. And then I started working on Crave website. So in those 10 days, when I was in one room talking to nobody, and then I set up a whole e-commerce store. Thankfully, I come from some technology and software background, which helped me being able to do that. And then by the time it came out in 10 days, we had a full-fledged e-commerce store for ready to go. And then that helped us do a lot more stuff after that, because doing performance marketing and putting a lot of systems and processes in place. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey. Starting off with 2 employees in 2019, 20, I think 1920, being 42 employees today. I remember Leena was making about 20 by 30 cakes in 2019 every month. Today we make about, I think, 3,000 cakes every month. So it's been a fantastic journey. And actually the whole new community, yeah. You community, you guys validated our market. Thanks for all that, yeah.
So thank you for that. Can you just share some quick metrics on, where most of your sales comes from, and also it was interesting to talk to you earlier, and you mentioned that how a bakery business has really prioritized tech. So you've been able to track a lot of information. You own your delivery yourself. You do all of your deliveries yourself. So can you, share some metrics on, average order value for anybody over here who's in the food business, an aspiring food entrepreneur, to hear it from Crave?
I think Leena hates this word. I call it big tech. She hates this big tech. Maybe online first company, and then the technology has helped us in many different ways. Being tech first company, we've got platforms in sales and CRM, logistics management platform, and of course in kitchen display system. So we kind of leverage the technology, and then coming to the numbers and stuff. As I said, I mentioned when we were doing home baking, Leena was doing home baking about 25 cakes a month, I think. and then we kind of doing like 3,000 cakes a month now, which is like I think 100% or 1,000% growth. So from there into the average. So we do a lot of concentrate a lot of performance marketing, which helped us a lot. And then because of the online store we have, that enabled us to be able to do performance marketing, right? On Meta, of course, Google and stuff. Average, we kind of acquire average acquisition cost per customer is about 600 rupees for us today, and average order value is around 2,800, which helps us be able to spend on average acquisition per customer, right? 600 rupees. And then what has helped us is started off being vegan, as a messaging, vegan only market. From there, we had added a lot of categories, though the vegan baseline becomes always vegan. Every product is vegan at Crave now. But then we added on gluten-free products, sugar-free. Now we're starting a diabetic-friendly range now this year. And then comes to theme cakes and customized cakes and stuff, right? So expanding into multiple categories has helped us a lot. And then coming to, I think, split.
Sorry to interrupt, but can you give us an idea of what percentage of orders are gluten-free and sugar-free?
I'm just starting. So now currently we, I think, do just about vegan or eggless baking, what we call the vegan and eggless collection is about. So vegan customers are less than 15-20% for us now. Gluten-free is about 40% business. And the rest of the customized cakes, which are theme cakes, be it for wedding, be it for birthday cakes and stuff, is about 35%. And 5% is about sugar-free market, because sugar-free we only started last year. But this year we're going to concentrate a lot more on sugar-free, diabetic-friendly market now. So that's kind of what we're doing now.
Great. And we noticed that you're also on Swiggy. In fact, you can place an order and get a cake at home in an hour, which is an amazing convenience. Just curious to know, between the channels and your own website, what's the split?
So coming to the platforms, right, we've been heavy on our own platform, on our own website, and that has helped us a lot to keep the margins to ourselves. It's counter to a lot of other restaurants and food businesses who are out there. So we get about 80 to 85% orders straight from our website, right? 80 to 85%. We do about Swiggy only 10 to 12%, and the rest of the 5% is probably from our cafe and stuff, right? Retail setup we have. So from day one, we've been less reliant on the food aggregator platforms. We've not entertained them much, nor I think it's vice versa, right? So also the other reason was initially not that we didn't want to be on these platforms, but when we registered ourselves on Swiggy and Zomato in around 2021 or 22, I don't remember exact date. But then out of 10 orders, because the nature of the product is like such, right? Cakes and, sometimes larger designer cakes, custom cakes and stuff. Out of 10 orders, I think we had 2 to 3 orders being damaged, right? So it was high damage rate, 20-30%. They would come on the bike with the basket. You don't even want to give them the cakes, cupcakes and stuff, but we don't have a choice. We give it to them. So, and then out of 10 orders, we had huge damage rates. So that's why we kind of focused on our own logistics. We currently have we started in 2020 with about 2 scooter riders. We have about 7 delivery in-house staff now with 2 4-wheelers and 5 2-wheelers. So we supply across Bangalore 35 kilometers. Yeah. Just to maintain the quality and stuff. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Now we're going to move to Sukriti Khaitan, the co-founder of Asa Beauty, a luxury beauty and makeup brand. She's had a short journey. In fact, a lot of it has been at Namu Recommends Market. We were a part of your journey when you had just launched the business. Was it in 2021? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that journey. It seems to be short, just 3 years. You've had a lot happen in your life. And Sukriti has recently, the company has been fully acquired. So we thought that would be an interesting journey to follow.
Absolutely. So we started 2021 January, and Asa was launched at the same time as my first baby. So you can only imagine how crazy it was that I had 2 under 2, so it became 3 within 3 years, with Asa as my third child. So basically, we started off kind of looking into a very holistic ethos and the sustainable, vegan, and natural way of thinking and natural way of being. I myself am a vegan, and I actually co-founded this with my mom-in-law, who's also a vegan. And we both were thinking that it's COVID time. We're kind of here in India. There's a lot of things that you can't get back and forth. I actually grew up in Hong Kong, where it was very, very easy to access a lot of clean products. But coming to India, I found that there was a very low barrier to entry. Any Tom, Dick, and Harry could have entered the market, and that trust value with the consumer is not as high. So we just kind of thought to ourselves that, it's really important that we create a product here in India that consumers can trust and feel really proud about. Like, why can't we create a brand that is that of the global standards? And ours is a cosmetics brand. So we worked really hard on our formulations, made them 85% natural. We worked really, really hard on the packaging and customized everything. So we didn't ship in packaging from abroad. We actually created the dyes and the molds out of aluminium and engineered them together and created a whole refillable concept. So our makeup could be refilled as people would buy them. It started off in 2021 and we sold it just last year in May. It was luckily a full cash exit. And it's living, and the vision for Asa, which we're most happy about, has been handed over to somebody who also believes in the same way of being. They really want to take Asa global. They want an Indian brand to enter the global platform. So we really, really aligned with that way of thinking and are happy to see it go forward.
So, a lot of entrepreneurs can wrap their heads around possibly starting a food business. Everybody thinks, hey, I can start a restaurant, I can start a food brand. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I can be in fashion. I know a little bit about it, but starting a makeup brand requires a lot of R&D. Can you walk us through that process, or from concept to the first product? What's it like? What are the type of people that you hire to develop a clean makeup brand?
Absolutely. So I'm very, very passionate about clean beauty products, and the passion sort of stemmed from the clean health and wellness, the clean way of being, and looking at all the ingredients, learning how to read an ingredient label. So a lot of the times we would study and assess, buy certain products, study and assess, and look at the ingredient list and also see its efficacy. Because if you're trying to sell in this market, you can't just have your values down and expect it to sell. It has to also be performance driven. And in a makeup space, you're competing with the Dior's and the Bobbi Browns who have it locked down. They're using ingredients like silicones, which really do help the foundation stick to your face. But for a clean brand, using that ingredient, it would be fairly difficult to have a foundation that sticks to your face. So it did take about a year and a half of a lot of R&D. We worked with 2-3 different formulators, and ultimately after a year and a half got our formulations into place, where we prioritized using clean, natural ingredients. So we're talking about using coconut oil, not a derivative, which is CCTG. So 85% of the ingredients were predominantly whole plant-based ingredients. And on top of that, we also wanted to make sure the quality of ingredients going in and the sourcing was also, it had to be that of the global standard. So we looked at EcoCert ingredients, we looked at Cosmos, we looked at a lot of different environmentally sustainable platforms to make sure that our ingredients are as pure as they can be. And we also didn't want to cut any corners in making sure that the product was the first ingredient going in, and this is just for everybody here, the first ingredient you see in any packaging label is the largest part of that particular product that you are buying. So, for example, if you are buying face wash and the first thing you see is water, then you can imagine that 80% of that face wash is made out of water. For us, we wanted to make sure that the first few ingredients going in are oils, butters, and waxes, because ultimately those are very, very nourishing for the skin and they actually give you that dewy finish. So we worked a lot with working on the skin biology, physiology of just us as people, and getting into and understanding how we can make something that's performance driven yet close to our values.
The makeup industry is quite vast and also developed in India right now. But I mean, there are two. There's the luxury makeup, which is mostly imported, and then most of the Indian brands I feel that reach the masses are budget. So, how is your go-to-market? What were your marketing strategies, and what worked for you?
That's a really interesting question, Namu, because like you mentioned, 97% of the market was predominantly masstige. 3% was luxury, and we were positioned as an Indian luxury brand. Out of those 3%, 0.1% were clean beauty brands. So we kind of were very, very clear that, look, this is not a numbers game. We're not looking to become a 100 crore company in the span of a year, which would be great. But for us, we were following the line of thinking that let us create a brand that doesn't exist in India right now. Let's bring it from 0 to 1 and then ultimately hand it over to someone who we feel can scale it from 1 to 10. So our 0 to 1 process was about like really pushing and creating a space for a vegan beauty brand in the industry. And a lot of that was 60% of our sales came through our own platform, our own website. And mostly makeup brands do really well on marketplaces. But for us, it didn't happen that way. It was predominantly our website because we realized that it was so intent driven behind buying a vegan brand. And we were very clear that our audience are also people who are very sure of what they want to buy. They want to buy a vegan, sustainable, natural brand. So I think our marketing strategy was very much geared towards that segment right from the get-go. So like you mentioned, Namu Recommends has been great for us because we found a lot of people who actually resonated with why ASA even exists. So that's just a little bit about how things were bifurcated and how niche the segment is. And right now we're seeing so many amazing brands springing up in this space, and I really hope to see that 0.1% change numbers very, very soon.
So I'm curious to know at what point your journey would have been unique, but at what point did you as a founder think about exit? What made you decide, and walk us through that process? So where does one begin? An exit could be for various reasons. It could be your life. It could be burnout. You've given it its time. But at what point do you decide, and then where do you begin?
So it happened really organically. Actually, we were feeling happy that we were able to get this brand on the map in the market that we were looking. We were able to bring it from 0 to 1. But like I mentioned earlier, we knew we were not the right people to take it from 1 to 10. At this stage in life, I personally was at. I had 2 children, 2 under 2, and I was like, to take it from 1 to 10 at this point may not be my goal. I was very much clear and geared that it was going to be a 0 to 1 journey from the get-go. So it happened really organically last year, where we were approached by someone through our network, and they themselves said that, hey, this is a brand that we were actually going to create a brand for the global market, but this is a brand that's already set the tone exactly the way we want, and we'd like to acquire you. And that conversation just started, and it rolled, and it ended very, very quickly. I think we were done and dusted in 3 months with the full cash exit.
Congratulations. Like I'm wearing my Akka blush. Okay. Thank you. We're going to move to Abhay Rangan, a very familiar face and name in Bangalore's vegan scene, primarily because he was the youngest um, and still is, yes, absolutely. What is really admirable about Abhay's journey is that you started the business at 17, 18, 19, something like that. Um, Yes. So Abhay started one good along with his mother, also at home in the kitchen. And what's really interesting about the journey is that for the longest time you focused on one or two products. Am I right? So you've been in the old dairy space for a long time, and maybe later on in your journey you have explored and developed other products. But I think it's interesting. Many people, perhaps entrepreneurs, they start with an entire range and they work the other way. But I think it's admirable when you're the expert of one product, you really understand it. People know you for that. So, can you give us a short intro of how you grew from a home kitchen to a shelf-stable product?
Sure, thanks, Namu. That's very kind of you. It starts when I was a kid. My parents said, if you don't study well, we'll make you sell milk. And here we are. So I turned vegan about 14 years ago, when my parents turned vegan first and they inspired me. At that point, there's been plenty of long-term vegans. Surprisingly, someone has been vegan for 20 years or so, 19 years or so on. If you remember back then, there was like silk, which was imported from the US, 800 rupees a liter, almond milk, and there was Sofit at that point, and that was that. So if you wanted plant-based milk, you had one or two brands. The biggest one was imported, and there was not a lot of local options to choose from. At this point, I was an activist. I was doing a lot of animal rights activism every Saturday and Sunday instead of studying at home. I was in front of the KFC in Indranagar. I was in Brigade Road doing leafleting and VR headset campaigns and so on. At that point, a lot of people came to us and said they knew of veganism, they wanted to go vegan, but they didn't have a lot of options. You can argue that, masala dosa is vegan, idli is vegan, you're sorted, but people still want what they want, which is they want dairy alternatives, they want meat alternatives, whatever it is. And it is reasonable for us to reduce friction. So, as advocates of the movement, how can we solve problems? You said you want to help build businesses, and there was a great panel on fitness. They're helping people become the best version of themselves, and through that, going plant-based is part of it. And everybody has a vehicle or intervention that they want to do for the movement. And an important vehicle, which is probably true for everybody in this panel and beyond, is we want to reduce the friction in people wanting to eat more vegan options. So it made sense to have something that's affordable and accessible, and that has always been the intent. I never thought I'd be a businessman, but it turned out that the idea that we had found purchase. In fact, at that point, I remember a lot of people whispering that plant-based options are not pretty expensive. The few options that we have are really pricey, and there's issues on accessibility and so on. And we were the first to speak about it, I think, in the way that we did. And it found a lot of purchase. I remember very early on, we had absolutely, we delivered an unbranded pack. It was like, we probably thought it was drugs or something. And luckily, nobody really questioned it. I used to deliver these products myself for a while because there's no Swiggy or Dunzo or Porter before. I did it in the morning before college, coming back from college, I did it after. And after a while, we had enough money to hire delivery people, and that's how it scaled. That's briefly the journey. I want to add something towards Sunny said. A genius strategy they employ. There's a cart with kids that goes around, and it's so hard to say no to them. And take my money. It's awesome to see performance marketing. It's a great sales channel. But I think that's part of the power of community. People are very forgiving with us. They love to see us there. We were part of many stalls. My mom and I were right there. And I think that found purchase. I think it's a lot harder to do that today, given that there's 100 brands here, and everybody wants attention. But back then, there was 2 or 3. I think we got quite lucky with the timing and place of where we're at.
What about developing a shelf-stable product? Is that something that you were able to do in-house? You had to hire scientists? What's the process like to develop something like that?
That's a great question. I think the science is fairly established thanks to the dairy industry. They've done this for thousands of years, really. But more formally, in the last couple of decades, the dairy industry has taken a lot of shape. It's 11 lakh crore market, and they figured out how to make something shelf stable. All you need to do is copy them. And it's true, right? Plant-based milk is still a basic in terms of its pH, a beverage that you need to stabilize. What you can do is you can heat it, you can put it in a sterile environment, and boom, you have something shelf stable. So it took a bunch of dairy engineers to figure out how to make plant-based food shelf stable, plant-based milk. But it's not something we uniquely solved. I mean, Sofit has been around for a long time in a Tetra Pak. And in many cases, you don't have to do the innovation yourself. The manufacturer does it. You just need to give them money. And that's the hard part. I think to do Tetra Pak, you need to minimum 10,000 liters at a time. And now some dairy plants won't even look at you because they do 3 lakh liters a day. 10,000 liters is nothing for them. So you have to find the right manufacturer who's willing to give you a chance and sort of give them enough working capital to figure it out. And in 1 or 2 trials, you get it right. You may burn some money during the process, but that's the whole aspect of risk taking, right? Everybody here has had this problem. How much packaging should I buy at once? Nobody's giving you one piece at a time. There's an MOQ. You have to order it, and it takes few lakhs in working capital. You have to then inventory it. It takes few months to sell it. So before you know it, you have like 3, 4, 5 months of revenue tied up in inventory, working capital, receivables, all of these things. So I think it's not so much a technology problem today; it's a capital problem, and maybe that will change. But I still think it's a capital problem more than anything else. And if anybody is really looking at doing something in the space in food, just take inspiration from the animal products industry, right? They figured out how to make everything shelf-stable. There's a billion SKUs, and they figured out how to solve for all of it. All you got to do is just copy it, and more often than not, like 90% of the time, you'll be right. It'll work. Yeah.
Can you share one big challenge that you had to overcome, and also share one win that you're really proud of in this journey?
I think one big challenge has been to constantly renovate from being product led to being sales and distribution led. It doesn't come naturally to everybody, certainly not to me. I think a lot of founders pride themselves on making great products, and that's half the job. The other half of the job is distribution. You still got to go get it out there. People need to see the product. You need to compete in a marketplace of other brands who have a lot more money, who have a lot more distribution, who have a lot of other things that you don't have. And I think that remained a challenge for us. And I think we became more distribution led. I think you pointed earlier on that we had 2 products. We had milk and curd at some point, and then we have a lot more now. The idea was if you have enough distribution on your existing products, you can always just add 2, 3 more and then hopefully see a 2, 3x in revenue. That can happen. But you do get an incremental sort of improvement in sales. But it's moving beyond this frustration that I'm making a good product and I'm happy, I'm satisfied. But then saying I must sell, and selling is really hard. Does not come naturally to a lot of people, and we think it should be done by someone else. But the truth is, in very early teams, the founder is the salesperson. You have to be. In fact, delegating sales to someone else early on will kill you. And in fact, people think brands often die because other brands are in this space. Not true. Most brands kill themselves. Brands often die by suicide, not by murder. And part of that has very much to do with the mindset of the founder. And I'd say, I was 20, I didn't know anything, right? Like, what do you know when you're 20? You have to figure out how to change yourself. And when you change your ambition and your level of thinking, you allow your business to sort of fill that gap. And until you do so, your business will remain in the way that it is. So that's maybe one challenge that is true of everybody. Everybody now is trying to solve distribution. I think everybody has a known brand at this point. Everybody's done great products. We've all tasted all of it. The continuing question remains: how do we scale? And why the Tatas, why the Reliance of the world so formidable? There's so much distribution. They're in lakhs of stores. You'll be surprised. Most plant-based companies are not even in 1,000 stores. And India has 10 crore stores, right? That's the size of including Kirana, there's about 10 crore stores. Obviously, you shouldn't list in 10 crore stores at once because you'll burn thousands of crores in working capital. But it's important to think about how do I go from one channel to another? How do I reduce my dependency? We found that, for example, staying online only, which was great for the pandemic, as Sunny pointed it out, we grew 4-5x. And then after the pandemic, we were not quick enough to go offline. And then you're held captive by Mark Zuckerberg, who wants 30% of your money every month, right? If you make 100 rupees, Zuck takes 30, you're done. Game over. So it's, but I will say food brands have it a little hard because everywhere you go, they want 30% anyway. Nature's Basket wants 30%, Swiggy and Zomato want 30%. And just think about it, right? You're spending 30% on your margin, and then you're spending another 30% on ads. And then where's the money for your product, the raw material, packaging material, your inventory, and then where's the money left in profit? Who's ultimately paying the price? The consumer. And that's why plant-based milk is 300 rupees a kilo, right? So it is a fundamental challenge that has to be solved. And I mean, I'm very optimistic that someone from the dairy industry will come and do it. In that, if a Nandini or an Amul decide to launch a plant-based milk, which is not seem likely, but if they do, I think their margins will be so low on every aspect of the supply chain that the plant-based milk will be 30 rupees or 40 rupees when you buy it. I think one big win was we were acquired in 2023, and it was the largest, at least so far, I'm sure. So there'll be bigger ones in the future in the plant-based space at that time. I think it's another realization I've had for food specifically is I think it's beneficial if you have a diversified product range, and if you're part of an entity that also has a large business that can subsidize your innovation. And plant-based food, plant-based meat and dairy is 150 crore market today. So that's it. But dairy is 11 lakh crore market, right? So 150 crores is a rounding error. You can forget about it. You can blink your eyes and the market is gone. So from this, how do you really make? And there's 50 brands, right? All of them divide 150 crore by 50, you're left with like 3. So everybody's vying for 3 crores of the pie. And some, of course, it's a Pareto thing. 80% will go to 20% of the brands and so on. But it is fundamentally small. So you can't build a large company in a 150 crore market, but you can build a large company in a 10,000 crore market. So it's maybe your own is to figure out how you can survive in this environment. And I think we're glad that we're part of a business that is much larger, that has the wherewithal, patience, and capital to subsidize the innovation work we're doing. And over time, I think it tends to work out. That's the hope. So, yeah.
Thanks so much for those insights, Abhay.
Cheers, man.
So Rangan was recently acquired, as I mentioned, by Nourish You, another plant-based company. So we're excited to see what's in store for you in the future. Now we're going to move over to Soorya, the co-founder and COO of Cosmix. It's the protein that I ordered in very large boxes in my house, and we're big fans. How many of you have tried Cosmix over here? Yeah. Yeah, so.
Thank you guys. Really,
Yes.
honestly, it means a lot. Thank you so much.
So, I loved our preliminary call. Learning more about your business was very, very interesting to me. I feel that all of these are contrasting businesses. There are some similarities where a lot of you own your manufacturing. A lot of the sales comes from your own website, which is really interesting to know that it's not Amazons and the Swiggies that are running our business. But your company was also founded quite recently, and it's a wellness brand that has these superfood blends and now, of course, protein. So can you tell us a little bit about your product mix and how your product is unique?
So when we started on the onset of COVID itself. So 2019 December is when we started, and a couple of months into starting, COVID hit. But luckily we were completely online. So, and we were too small to even think of what's going to happen and all of that. We were barely making about 3,000 rupees a month when we first started. It was only superfoods, and Abhay was a big inspiration, to be very honest. Yeah. So we would talk about how in a very niche market, and someone started something that can help a small community. You're not even considering something that's going to help everyone, and expecting it to be accepted by everyone. So we started in a 1-bedroom house where I wasn't still in the business. I was Vibha and I was still dating, and she had started in a 1-bedroom house by herself and a friend who was helping her make the blends, pack it into small boxes. She designed her first packaging using Canva. It had to be done. She got her hands dirty and everything with the first initial couple of months, and then we learned B2C ourselves. Luckily, all these platforms are available. For example, like Amazon and Shopify and a lot of these delivery apps and all of these are very comfortable now. Like anyone can just start something easily. You just have to look back and march forward. So it was easy and it was a very slow, gradual growth. We weren't planning to, make lakhs of money in revenue initially. So it was like, 3,000, then it became 10, then it became 15. And, very recently we started, scaling that way. And initially it was just these superfoods, and it honestly tasted very bad. So, and it still does, because our whole concept was, you just need, what is required and what's going to help you with, and rather than any, flavoring or sweetener that's just going to make it taste well and bulky. So our serving is also, just 60 grams and you get, around 40 servings in that. So, but then later we understood the market. People weren't very regular. So initially people would buy it considering, it's healthy, and all the education and all of that, people would get motivated to buy something like that. Once they started trying it, it tasted horrible. And then we wouldn't see them come back and buy it. So then, like you said, manufacturing was with us, although small. So we could renovate, make those sweets. Namu's was where we started. We got very honest feedback from everyone, saying it's nice and all of that, but it tastes bad. So went back to the drawing board, started making it again, and then having manufacturing with us, all our products have gone through around 4 or 5 changes over these years, and none of them is the same as when we launched it initially.
I'm just going to fast forward a few years, and I don't know if any of you watches Shark Tank and has seen the episode of Cosmix on Shark Tank. I can't believe I only watched it the other day to find out more about you. And what I loved about that episode is that the sharks were literally fighting over who wanted to invest in Cosmix. And you're very modest. But what was really interesting, and I think one of your strengths, is that each of the products, there are no single ingredient products, and each is an original formulation, and you own the manufacturing, so it's all proprietary, right? But one thing that you mentioned to me that really stuck out was that you try to run it like a traditional business, and you have a few mentors who have also encouraged you to do that. So can you just talk a little bit more about that?
So I think like most of us, I don't come from a business background. Although my in-laws are, so they run a business. They've been doing it for 15 years. So all help from them. We learned a lot of things from their mistakes. And that's what we try to implement. They've been bootstrapped for 15 years. So, and we kind of learned the same way. I didn't know how the funding market or anything would work until we started planning to launch Shark Tank. So we knew the way in which you handle your money in this way. This is your bandwidth. Work. I think that's a very good way. You don't have so much money that you can spend on everything and take a lot of this. We probably put in a lot of thought, brainstorming on what is the best and most effective way to use the whatever limited capital that you have. So doing that is again what I meant by traditionally run the business, where we see a lot of brands coming in with a lot of money power, but again we still not the best at business or even very good at it. But what we know is the product. We learned manufacturing along the way. We're strong with our products and formulations, and luckily the vegan community has been very supportive and very honest feedbacks, and we keep innovating with these products. So we just and most of our audience or most of the people who are in our team as well have been users of Cosmix, and even on social media, anybody who's influencing or telling, recommending our product, they're users first, and then most of the time they reach out to us like, we want to do something with you, and then only then I believe an honest feedback or a review of a product comes, unless you reach out to them, and tell them, and most of the time they don't even know what product they're selling. And I think all of us with the amount of performance and influencer marketing that's happening, you can see right through the marketing that anybody does, unless they believe in the product. So that's I think one way which we use the capital, use our network, and again, very grateful for all of that.
Wondering what your brand loyalty is like. What are your repeat customers in terms of a percentage of sales?
So our repeat is 60% now, but for food brand it is, I believe, or for a supplement brand, I believe it is not good enough, because if you maybe let's say for what I tell is if you don't need supplements, you don't have it. As long as you are able to manage it with your daily regular diet, I think nothing like it. So only then, if you're you fall out of your routine, or you're with anything else that you're eating something wrong and if it's affecting your body, then just take the support of supplementation. And once you're able to get back on your track, I think you should. You don't need it anymore. So I think our repeat is 60%, but we, like I said earlier, we learned that since the taste wasn't good, people would not come back for the product. Although we would call them up and ask, why, why aren't you buying again or something? Because like Sunny mentioned that cost of acquisition is very high. So online cost of acquisition is very high, and we didn't want to lose people just because they didn't like the product. So we had to innovate, and most of the time, also when we called, they would say, "No, I think my problem is solved, so I don't need it." Then I'm like, "Okay, fair enough. You don't need the product if the problem is solved." But then they would come back to the product only because then somewhere they will fall off the track, and only for the brief time you need supplementation, and then you can fulfill it with your body.
So, what's your products? Because you have the superfoods and you also have the protein. So, what's your split like of sales?
We have around 10 superfoods, and this protein is one category. So it's 50-50. Protein is pretty big for especially vegans not having a source of protein. So protein is definitely big. So it's 50% of our sales, and the other 50% is supplements. So maybe digestion health, sleep, or hair health, things like that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to move over to Nikhil Gupta, the founder of Panini and the Pizza Bakery. I think you're open just before COVID, if I'm right. Am I right?
So we started the Pizza Bakery in December 2017.
Yes.
Panelists just started in 2019 December, a few months before COVID.
So the reason we invited Nikhil to be part of this panel is he isn't a pure vegan entrepreneur, but both of his businesses have had solid vegan options. And we're always curious to know why they valued something like that. Very often when you go to restaurants and they said, "Oh, we can do vegan," what they do is they just remove all of the non-vegan ingredients and they give you a dish that is incomplete and definitely not tasty. And as a vegan myself, it feels like a punishment. I feel like I'm being shortchanged. Or, if you go to some gourmet restaurants in Bangalore, you'll be just given an appetizer or French fries, like somebody said, So the vegan community, as you can see, we have very high standards by all of the food options that are here today. And it's really nice when an establishment can recognize that. And I wanted you to tell us, how it is that you started a vegan menu. So when you opened, did you have a vegan menu already?
So when we started, we had a very limited menu. Overall, as a company, we believed in sort of getting the product right, doing little of it, but doing it very well. So when we started, we had a small menu. So we started Pizza Bakery in, like I said, 2017 December. We started the vegan range about 4.5 years ago. And why we started is we had a lot of requests from our customers. They loved our pizzas, but many of them said they weren't able to sort of enjoy it regularly or even once because we didn't have a vegan range. And we got a lot of requests, so that pushed us to start making our own vegan cheese.
You mentioned that originally you had a pizza without cheese.
Yes. So initially it started with when we had vegan requests. We used to tell our customers, why don't you try a particular pizza which had no cheese. So that came, few of them did do it because they didn't have a choice. But we saw that nobody was enjoying it. They wanted a full experience without a compromise. And that's why we said we need to sort of set off and have a proper vegan range. So we have vegan pizzas and vegan garlic breads in Pizza Bakery. And we have paninis, wraps, and a whole bunch of things in Paris Panini.
With Paris Panini, from the get-go, you decided to have a vegan menu.
That also came a few years after.
Okay, so basically it came from requests from the vegan community. I'm just curious to know, is it just the vegan community or is it people with lactose intolerance or something like that as well?
It's a combination. So we do see pizzas where people have a vegan pizza with chicken on it, for example. So we have a whole range of people. There are pure vegans, there are people with lactose intolerance, and there's also many who don't want to have cheese because it doesn't suit them or they don't feel good. But they're not necessarily vegan, but they enjoy the taste of our vegan pizzas.
Great. I'm just curious to know in terms of the percentage of total sales, because I don't think anybody in Bangalore is able to answer the number of vegans that we actually have in the community. Nobody really knows. So, well, in terms of you, sorry, we'd like to know. Yeah, maybe we'll do a consensus. So, yeah, in terms of both your restaurants, what percentage would your vegan sales be?
Sure. So I'll go with the Pizza Bakery first. In terms of our vegan pizzas and garlic breads, we do about 2.5% of our sales is vegan, but it's still a decently large number. So we do about roughly 2,500 pizzas and garlic breads a month. And with Paris Panini, the percentage is higher. It's about 5%. But that's because we have a range of our hummus wraps in Paris Panini, which is enjoyed by vegetarians as well. It's not really just vegans.
So, while that seems like such a small number, but I think it should not be ignored because we were having this discussion that about the vegan veto. Has anybody heard of the vegan veto? It's basically vegans have non-vegan friends. We socialize with them. I go out with my non-vegan friends. We're going to pick a restaurant. So we're going to have to pick a restaurant that has good vegan options. Otherwise, so this one single vegan has the power to veto an entire restaurant if they haven't invested enough time to give us some good options. So while, he may see 2.5%, of the vegan options that are being ordered, there's a lot more business that the vegan influenced in his business. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's something that I heard about only recently. Yeah. So also, in terms of, you said that you had even introduced a dessert that you had to take off the menu with that because you marketed it as vegan. So in terms of marketing it and shouting it at the top of your voice, what do you think works in terms of marketing this type of?
So what we saw, we had a very good chocolate dessert that was vegan, but it's not on the menu anymore. So I think two things did not, actually one thing didn't work for it, was even though it was a great dessert, we marketed it as a vegan dessert. So it was popular amongst the vegans, but vegetarians or non-vegans were not so keen on the dessert because they felt by having a vegan dessert or rather picking a vegan dessert from a range of desserts that were available, they were compromising. And that's a learning for us. So that is something we're working on. We are going to eventually introduce a vegan dessert, but not really market it as well.
That's a good point because, for example, at Third Wave, I think all of their banana breads are vegan. but they happen to be vegan. So if you're really vegan, we would have done the research and found out, but they don't really talk about it. So therefore, the masses can buy that as well. But I think that's something to keep in mind until, having the word vegan isn't something kind of weird or different.
Yes. And there's a couple of things that we've done also to sort of facilitate the vegan menu. Because for us, products need to move at a certain scale to maintain freshness and various other reasons, because it's a decently large operation. So a couple of things we've done is, so our pesto is vegan by design. People don't know that, but we made it vegan so that it can be used in vegan pizzas, and we don't need to maintain two different pesto. And even in Panini, our multigrain bread was made vegan so that we can also sell to vegan customers.
So to give you an idea of the scale over the past 6-7 years,
7.5
years, they scaled from one restaurant to 30 restaurants around the city. And we hope that to see the vegan range grow and grow at your restaurants and all of your future ventures. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
And now we're going to move over. Thank you guys for being an amazing audience. We have one very unique story left. Sowmya is the founder of Hibiscus Heroes. And I've really enjoyed hearing your story, and I'm looking forward to you sharing this with everyone here. But she used to work at Tommy Hilfiger was it in purchasing? What was the department? In design. And she was, I don't know, is Tommy considered fast fashion? It's high end.
Not really.
No,
It's nevertheless,
yeah,
it's a corporate.
yes. So she came completely from that world and to making, she's founded a slow fashion brand called Hibiscus Heroes. And not only is it slow fashion, but it's also completely plant-based. Her fabrics are dyed using flowers and leaves, and how beautiful is that? And I don't think you can go very fast with those type of things. So do tell us a little bit of history of why you moved from corporate to something that is so different.
Hello, everyone. So I've been in the fashion business for the last 22 years and mainly worked as a designer and in different capacities, but for the same brand. I mainly worked for Tommy Hilfiger close to 15 years in Amsterdam. We were working for the global line. And working in a corporate was interesting for me simply because you learned a lot, different aspects of the business. You traveled a lot. There was a lot of visibility where the clothes were made, how they were made. It was a very compliant brand, so it's not really fast fashion. There were a lot of serious compliances, how the products were made, what way they sourced. So this was also a big part of my education. It was not just the creative part. So after about 15 odd years doing that, the last 3 years, I decided already I wanted to come back home. I was finished with Europe on many levels and India was calling. But the second thing was I was also very much confronted with the business of fashion. So you see, most of the clothes are made in this part of the world, India, China, Bangladesh. But they're made for the rest of the world. So I would often travel and to see the kind of impact on people and planet for products that they barely use was quite confronting. And this happened in all regions from Tunisia to provinces in China, Bangladesh, India, Colombo, Vietnam. Similar, right? It's a very, very taxing business because it needs a lot of natural resources and it's also a lot of human resources to create this. So that dialogue was very confronting. The older I got, the more I saw this. And also the whole business of fashion, the whole idea behind consumerism, the way it is used, and how next to that, the whole parallel world of fast fashion started cropping up. So I kind of wondered, do I really want to do this? That was a big one. After all these years, I said maybe it's time to look into something else.
I moved back to India and for a couple of years chose not to do fashion, was working in other things. But you know, it's my medium. It's my paintbrush. Clothes, colors are my paintbrush. So somehow it kept calling me. So I did a bit of travel to artisans that I used to work with down south and in the north to really see what is it I want to do and how I connect. And this is where the story of plant-based fashion cropped out of the blue, unexpected. One fine day when I went to meet some people and I discovered what River Kaveri looked like in the south. And they told me that's Kaveri. And I'm like, really? It was purple, blue, psychedelic. I was wondering why. Because it was in the textile belt of Salem, Erode. And most of the pigments and the bleach, everything is dumped into that river. So that was again a bit like, okay, you want to go back into this? And the same afternoon, I bumped into some old contacts and I was kind of frustrated about water and rivers and pollution of land, and it's a serious thing. And this person said, you know, there was a small craft artisan here who was trying to revive plant-based dyes. Would you like to meet him? So I show up at this tiny little studio. The man only makes pigments. We sat on a floor with a mat on. And before he showed me the pigments, he showed me the flowers. He said, this is Tacoma, we make yellow. Vidalia, we make green. Karangali, we make gray. And it took me about 15 minutes and the whole brand emerged. It was there. The story, the aspiration, the inspiration, the aesthetics, everything was built in that one meeting. And it became clear that I want to make a plant-based clothing brand. It was more about colors from flowers, seeds, roots. It was more about a brand that tells the story of our textile heritage, which is very rare because plant-based dyeing happens in this part of the world. It's not known for other places. Even if it was known, it's almost extinct, you know? So this was the story, and when the pigments became so clear, it was rather obvious that I will only do plant-based fibers. There's no point, you know, the whole storytelling has to be a plant power. So from there, we started working on researching different kinds of plant fibers and plant processes. And that's actually what happened the first few years, just working on the fabric and the pigments. And then the brand evolved slowly.
Do you think that having a slow fashion brand can, how does one make that, turn it into a business that is financially successful? Because you will have certain constraints in terms of production. What about your supply chain? Do you have any challenges there?
You know, it's possible because if you look at the other side, right, the fast fashion, the numbers, it's purely greed. It's greed. And when you use that as a yardstick, it's going to topple everything else. So that is not what I'm looking at. What I'm looking at is slow handcrafted clothing, which serves an entire community, which serves the storytelling. And this is how clothes were made here. Look at most of our clusters. You talk about Jamdani, you look at Kanjivaram. Really slow fashion. This is how India was known. And it fed entire villages. It styled generation of women. So this is possible. It's possible to make it sustainable, slow, and economically beneficial. Now, scalability, you have to be you need to understand where is it you want to go, right? What drives you? Honestly, for me, what drives me is we are a woman-centric brand. A lot of 95% of our workforce are women from the bioregion where we live. We come from Oroville. So a lot of the villages around are the women who work for us. So for me, if we are about 35 to 40 women in our team now, and those 40 families. I started with 4 families, 10 families, now it's 40 families. I look at it more like that. Is my business sustaining this, and can I grow in a certain way to increase this? I have a certain matrix that I follow, and that's how I'm doing it organically. And there are certain products which are scalable also in plant-based. That's where you use technology. And I'm a big fan of it. So if you can kind of be responsible how to use technology, you can scale many things. Again, the scaling is a responsible scaling, and that's what I'm interested in anyways. So for us, it's been a beautiful organic growth, and somehow we feel, the work, what we get and what we send out into the world is sustaining and growing in a healthy way.
So inspiring. Where do people find your clothes apart from pop-ups or in Orville? How do your customers find you, or how do you find your customers?
So we actually have a lot of stores all over India, small boutiques and chains of hotels. Like, for example, we have our own store in Orville. There's a couple of stores that we are on consignment in Pondicherry, in Bangalore as well. We just opened one. But first, we love Namu's market because we have a lot of customer base from here, a lot of repeat customers from here. And we've been here for many, many markets right from the beginning, and it's been an immensely inspiring and immensely, empowering space. So thank you for that. It's one big one. And otherwise, we also retail in beauty. The thing is, we have a very diverse type of boutiques and clientele. First, people buy because they like it. That's, they don't see from a distance if it's plant-based or natural, right? It has to look beautiful, has to be contemporary, stylish, whatever, pleasing the aesthetics. So we are placed in different boutiques all over India, and a couple of boutiques also abroad. And the second thing is, wherever there is slow fashion handcrafted, yes, they are great partners as well. And the third thing we've discovered is we are now partnering up with all CGH hotels. So all the hotels have our products also evolved back. So all these beautiful boutique hotels, they love to have products like ours because the storytelling and the DNA is the same. So this is a great one. And we have a small export order as well. We do some special export orders to Germany, France, Thailand, Sri Lanka, and somewhere else, I forget, another country. But these are very beautiful, curated, like organic markets and certain. The thing is, they're always amazed because in Germany, for example, we take part in an organic market. So organic cotton, we sell scarves and necklaces. The fact that we are also plant-based is a double plus because you don't find that anymore there. It's usually God certified, or they're mostly chemical dyes still. So in such places, we do stand out because India still has really immense potential to scale plant-based dyeing. We still have the knowledge, but at the same time, I tell you, for me, it's a very important purpose because it's fading very quickly. We really need communities to thrive, to also have a possibility in economic development. Otherwise, new generations will not learn how to extract pigments, So this is also a very important purpose as a textile and fashion designer that we need to keep this going.
Incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to open it out to audience questions. I'll do the mic, please.
Hi. So my question is mostly for Abhay and Soorya, and maybe Sunny can also pitch in. As someone who starting a food brand today, let's say in India, a plant-based food brand, what would be like a basic roadmap for them in terms of building a user base and scalability and distribution? Like maybe all of you can pitch in.
As you specifically said, building the user base, I mean, that's the first thing I would think, right? Building the user base, sales and marketing. So when it comes to sales and marketing especially, right? If I was a vegan brand starting today, I would focus on, of course, in coming to the marketing, there's various platforms, various ways you can do marketing, but I would start with performance marketing. That's the quickest way. Of course, it's it's not the cheapest way to get your first users, but that's the quickest way to get your first customers. And then stick on to the customers, talk to the customers, get the feedback, retain the customers. But I would say that if you were a new brand, if I was a new brand first 2-3 years, I would just bank on performance marketing. That doesn't mean that I don't do other channels of marketing, which is SEO if you have a website, retention marketing through WhatsApp and email. Email marketing still works really well. WhatsApp works better for us for sure now. But I would put probably 80% of my money into performance marketing. So if you're spending 1 lakh rupees when you're starting off, that's probably you would expect to spend on marketing anyway on a monthly basis. 80%, 80,000 I would put on performance marketing. Rest 20% I would put probably on influencer marketing, 10%, and rest of the 10% would be, I won't bank too much on SEO for sure, the first 1.5, 2 years, because SEO comes out once people start to know your website and branding and stuff. So 10% on influencer marketing, and then as I move forward, like after 1.5 year, I'll reduce the budgets of performance marketing to 60%, and then do 20% of influencer marketing or UGC, and rest 20% put into start doing SEO, and then email marketing and stuff. Ideally, after 3 to 4 years, you want to be at a point where you spend less and less on performance marketing, which is ads, Google and Facebook. Try to get to 40% on, after 4 years of being there, 40% of performance and 60% of organic, right? When I say organic, that includes multiple stuff, which is SEO, of course, and, loyalty programs and stuff. So I think first 2 years, just stick to performance marketing. That's the easiest way to get customers, but then don't lose those customers. They are expensive to acquire, expensive to get. Just talk to the customers, retain them as much as you can. Yeah.
That's a very good question. But I would personally think, leverage the channels that are available who already have a customer base, for example, like Amazon or Swiggy's, all of them first. Because, again, being very conservative on the spends. But definitely performance marketing is going to boost a lot more reach. But when there's already a set of audience who is looking for, something that you have to offer, I think you can definitely leverage the marketplaces that are available and then work your way around that first. So I think that's really good.
So I'll just share one thing that worked quite well for us when we wanted to sort of enter the vegan market. We actually collaborated with Sarah from Cotton Books, and we introduced a pizza with her. And she has a large vegan following, which is well known in the vegan community. And I think there's a lot of influencers and sort of well-known vegan figures there today. So I'm not sure what your product is, but I think sort of collaborating with them will also give you that access to their audience overnight.
So unfortunately, we don't have time for more questions, but if you do, please approach, you can approach, the panelists directly.
Now, can I answer that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
Great, thank you. I think those answers were great, and I think it sorts out your marketing thing. What I think is interesting is to figure out positioning. And the reason I ask this is, and I'll throw this out to the audience as well, by show of hands, how many of you think building a vegan business is really hard today? And there's no right or wrong answers. Just how many of you think it's extraordinarily hard in today's times to do it? And I think that sentiment is fair. But I will tell you, there's a lot of evidence to why it's a great time to do it, right? So one of the largest exits in the D2C ecosystem overall, not the plant-based ecosystem, was a company called Plix. I'm sure you've heard of them. They make protein powders and other great nutraceutical products. They were acquired by Marico. I think it was a 600 crore deal. It was the largest acquisition in the D2C space ever, fully vegan company, right? And Soorya is a little soft-spoken, but Cosmix is a killer company and a killer brand, right? And everybody here is sort of testament to the fact that you can build a multi-100 crore opportunity in the vegan space. But I don't think the same problems that people solved 10 years ago are relevant today. If you do plant-based milk again, you will have a hard time. Not just because there's one good, there's like 50 other brands now. And the problem is, at some point you have to copy someone. And you're copying not only their features, but their bugs as well. and you don't know what's a feature, you don't know what's a bug. They might know, they're improving it. But if you straight away take from them, you'll run into the same problems. So I think it's really important to figure out what positioning can you take. What's the white space that you can create? And there's plenty. I think actually read an interview by Siddharth from Hello Tempe who's here today. And one of it was that they don't necessarily call it an alternative to plant-based meat. They say it's a plant-based protein. And that's a great positioning. Then your market is not 150 crores, it's 10,000 crores, right? So I would say it's really important to find the flavor, shape, and nature of the problem you want to solve and make that as broad as possible and then solve it in a unique way. I happen to know what business you're building and I wish you the best. I think it's interesting to figure out where are those white spaces that you can occupy that you will be known for. Because if you're bidding against keywords with Sunny, you'll have a difficult time. It's what are the long tail keywords that you can not only bid for in terms of ads but also SEO. What is the one thing you want to be known for? And I think knowing that, even if your product's traditional, even if your product's been solved before, I think there are interesting ways to position it. And there are 140 crore people in this country, and there's enough appetite as we've seen. So many nutraceutical brands are by default vegan today. They don't call it vegan, they don't call it plant-based, but all these gummies are vegan today. A lot of nutraceutical companies, a lot of cosmetics companies, I think, I can't substantiate this stat, but I think like 90% of Mama's products are vegan. Like Nykaa, Sugar, all of them have vegan products. Like a lot of, I think there's now several 100 crore brands in the cosmetic space that are fully vegan. So, and this was not true 10 years ago. So we should not take the evidence of 90% of the startups in the space having failed as reasons to believe that the market is difficult right now. The truth is 90% of all startups fail. We look at our markets because we're passionate about it. We're like, oh no, this startup failed. But in the broader scheme of things, now is an incredible time to be alive and incredible time to build. So I'd say positioning is great. And the other thing is to just keep building. Right? You will run into problems of failure. Your business will not look the same as it did 6 months from now, and it will not look the same 6 months after that as well. But it's so important to just build and ship, let your customers tell you what they want. And I think as long as you figure that out, hopefully you'll have another 100 crore opportunity that you can jump into. Yeah.
So we're going to take, I feel like there's a lot of value added in this Q&A, so we'd like to take one more question.
Thank you so much. Hi everyone, I'm Pooja. My question is to you, Nikhil. But before the question, I just wanted to tell you that whenever I order, whenever I order pizza, it's from Pizza Bakery, and I was vegan starting 2 months back, and before that also it was Pizza Bakery. And I'll tell you, my non-vegan friends have had pizza from Pizza Bakery, the vegan one, and they love the cheese. So I'll ask you separately what you put in that. But my question to you is, as a person who's starting off, between business operations and business numbers and driving the recipe and the culinary art, what would you suggest as a founder one should focus on? And again, I'm also a plant-based cloud kitchen, just starting off 3 months into the market. And please feel free to jump in if anybody else also wants to advise. Thank you.
So my view on this is I think you need to get your product right first. I mean, business operations, profitability, etc. will naturally follow. But I think you need to, in the food business, it is a high margin business, right? If you're not traditional restaurant space. So you need to first build your audience and they are your biggest word of mouth. If they like it or they love it, they will definitely come back. So just put all your effort into creating the best product you can get, then get into business operations, and then everything else.
Thank you so much. And just a quick follow-up to that. What is a healthy contribution margin to start off with? Like, I'm completely bootstrapped at this point.
So you mean your bottom line after all expenses?
After fixed cost and variable cost, if I look at a contribution margin, what is the number that I should gun for?
See, I would say you should start with something like 10 to 15%, and it will get higher as you build the economies of scale. Because naturally in food, your food cost should be roughly around 30%, and 70% is your gross margin, but then you obviously have a lot of fixed costs. So 10 to 15% bottom line is something healthy to start with, and you should grow that as you scale.
Super. Thank you so much. That is very helpful. Yes, please, please.
So coming to the profits, right? Because profits are important for us to sustain the business, right? So the first thing is gross profit, which you want to come into the food as Nikhil said, 25 to 30% is what you want to maintain your costs, which is cost of goods sold. So your profit margin, you want to definitely be at 70%, not less than that. 75% is better. And then comes operational profits, right? So operational profits are the next stage when you pay your salaries, your bills, electricity, rentals and stuff. That you want to maintain for sure your gross profits plus operational profits. If you're left with about 15 to 20% EBITDA, which is your earnings before tax and interest, nothing like that. You're killing it in food business, right? If you're doing 15 to 20% before your interest and taxes, you're amazing. But the net profits, if you do it 10%, you're the best, right? 8 to 10% net profits after paying the taxes and stuff. So that's why food business. It's interesting that it's easy to get into. Operationally, it's heavy. You have to be on ground. A lot of money goes into running the business. But if you can make 10% at scale, you're the best. Yeah.